Hundreds of men, women and children gunned down in their cars, homes and at a rave. Dozens more captured and taken into Gaza. Israel is still reeling from yesterday's surprise attack by Hamas, which is designated a terrorist group by the UK, the US and the European Union. Shock too in Gaza, where 2 days of retaliatory airstrikes have led to hundreds of casualties. The army claims it's back in control of most areas of southern Israel, but it has continued to battle Hamas fighters in 8 towns. Israeli media says more than 700 Israelis were killed in the group's deadliest attack in 50 years of conflict. They include 44 soldiers. And at least 370 Palestinians have been killed in the densely populated Gaza Strip, where Israel's airstrikes have destroyed whole apartment blocks. The fighting has also drawn in Lebanese militant group Hezbollah. The Iran-backed group exchanged fire with Israel on Sunday after launching rockets and shells at 3 Israeli positions in the disputed Sheba Farms area. Hezbollah said the attack was in solidarity with the Palestinian people. And an Egyptian policeman has opened fire on Israeli tourists in the city of Alexandria, killing 2 of them and their Egyptian guide. Let's go live now to our foreign correspondent, Secunda Kamani, who's by the Israel-Gaza border. Secunda.
Well, we're not far from the Gaza Strip, and we've been hearing very regular, loud thuds of Israeli airstrikes landing in Gaza. We've seen footage coming in of the impact of those airstrikes as they hit targets in Gaza too. We've also been seeing at times the Israeli Iron Dome defense system intercepting some of the missiles, the rockets, I should say, fired out of Gaza by Hamas. And what's really unprecedented, though, about the situation that we find ourselves in now is the way that Palestinian gunmen have infiltrated over the past 2 days into Israeli territory, moving through Israeli towns, shooting and abducting civilians. It's been a massive security failure, a massive intelligence failure on the Israeli side. It's also led to the single deadliest incident for Israeli civilians in the country's history. And the assault isn't over yet. In the nearby Israeli town of Sderot, well, residents there have been warned by security forces to stay at home whilst they search for remaining gunmen. Of course, there's also a huge amount of fear for the 2 million or so people living in the Gaza Strip. We're not allowed to travel into the territory, though we do have a colleague filming for us who is based there. He and other residents are not allowed to leave Gaza. It seems almost inevitable that in the coming days there's going to be a major ground offensive targeting Gaza, a warning that our report contains some distressing images.
Day 2 of this war, and Israeli forces have still been battling pockets of Hamas gunmen. Reports of fresh infiltrations by militants terrifying residents in southern Israel. Despite its military strength, Israel seems to be struggling to assert full control over its territory. Heavy airstrikes are pounding the densely populated Gaza Strip, with rockets still being launched from there. Israel's Prime Minister has vowed there will be no respite as the country reels from its deadliest attack in decades. Israelis want revenge. In the small town of Ofakim, residents vent their fury on the abandoned vehicles used by the militants, setting one on fire.
Okay, let's go.
This gives you a sense of the level of anger there is in Israel right now. One of the guys who set that car on fire just told us if Prime Minister Netanyahu doesn't wipe Gaza out, he should leave the country.
Dozens of people were killed here, and just after we leave, clashes erupt nearby. The unprecedented, coordinated assault with Hamas fighters flying over the border fence or bulldozing through it began yesterday morning. Gunmen rampage through Israeli communities. In shocking videos, dozens of hostages, including women and children, are shown taken back into Gaza. Israelis have never been hit like this before. Underlining just how little a threat most Israelis saw emanating from Gaza, thousands had been attending an open-air rave not far from the border. Then there was panic as the militants attacked. Roy was there and thought he would never escape alive.
So how many bullets? Three? Two?
One in and out, and one still in my stomach.
We hid under a truck and played dead. When the terrorists came, they wanted to make sure we weren't alive, so they shot me and my two friends. They both passed out. I hope and pray that they are still alive, but I just don't know.
Outside a hospital in the southern city of Beersheba, desperate parents are looking for their children. 22-year-old son was also at the rave. He called his mother when he heard rockets being fired. She told him to run, but hasn't heard from him since.
Police, army, anyone, just bring me my boy. Nobody is telling us anything. What kind of country is this? I was in the hospitals. I can't find my son anywhere.
In response, Israel has launched a ferocious bombing campaign on Gaza. Entire streets have been reduced to rubble. This is one of the most densely populated places in the world, and everyone here feels under attack.
We, like everyone here, are being oppressed. Under the fire, the bombing, all night long. This building, 80 families lived here. You're talking about a whole neighborhood. A whole neighborhood. 80 homes.
The death toll here has been rising and will continue to do so as this assault intensifies. Outside the Al-Shifa hospital, a crowd gathers around an injured man. Cradled lovingly in his arms, he holds the body of his young child, killed when an airstrike hit his home. A final kiss from a distraught father. Israel has warned Gazans in certain neighborhoods to leave for other parts of the Strip. But they can't get out of Gaza. On both sides of this conflict, ordinary people are paying a terrible price.
5 families live in this building. 3 rockets hit, without any warning, without any call, without anything. A whole family was killed. A husband, wife, and their children. The rest are injured in the hospital.
Anger at Israel's bloody and oppressive occupation and blockade of Gaza helped fuel the awful violence inflicted by Palestinian militants. Anger at their brutality will fuel the deadly response Israel is now inflicting on Gaza.
Sikandar Kamani there, and some of the footage in his report was filmed by our colleague Youssef Hamash, who's inside Gaza. Well, I'm now joined by Fleur Hassan Nahum, who's the Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem. When you look at the number of deaths, the number of people held hostage still, do you believe that the intelligence and security services have this situation under control or not?
Well, they certainly didn't yesterday morning when there was an attack in 7, 8 different points on a border which is supposed to be properly secured. It's a border of a country going into another country because Israel, as your reporter misinformed, the public has not been in Gaza since 2005. You can talk about a blockade, but you can't talk about an occupation. Israel left Gaza in 2005. They've had free and fair elections, at least once. Hamas was elected by the people over Fatah, and they've been ruling the Gaza Strip for the last 10, 11 years.
Yeah, but
and so we actually have a proper border.
Yeah, but it's been
Gaza.
blockaded. It's been blockaded for 16 years, and there is now untold suffering in Gaza, as there is among the Israelis dead. You know, this is something that this bloodshed is now. It's just appalling to watch, isn't it? Do you agree with that statement?
Gaza has two borders, one with us and one with Egypt. In fact, in the last few months, and this is why this was surprising to us in Israel, we've been increasing the amount, at Hamas's request, we've been increasing the amount of work permits for Gazans to come into Israel to do an honest day's work, because, you know, Hamas take the international aid that they get and they build weaponries and tunnels instead of actually developing an economy or anything good
But
for
I'm
their
sorry,
people,
but you know
including
there are
hospitals and schools.
But you know there are civilians in there who are unable to leave, and they're being urged to leave now. Well, where are they supposed to go? Where are they supposed to go? The 2 million people in Gaza.
And where are the people in the south of Israel supposed to go? The militants that came into Gaza yesterday morning came in with one goal, and that was to kill innocents. When Israel goes in to destroy terrorist infrastructure, innocents, unfortunately, are the casualties of war. And let me tell you, the people in the building that you reported about all got an SMS message saying, please leave the building. We're about to bomb it because there is terrorist infrastructure in that building. What we have here is a double war crime. The Hamas, which is a terrorist organization, which is ISIS, which is an arm of the Iranian government, come in to kill innocent Israelis, and we go in and we warn their innocence.
Okay, let me talk about those innocent.
Let
me talk about the innocent Israelis that you've just mentioned, some of whom are now held hostage.
Yes.
Given the security failings that you've alluded to yourself, should the security minister resign, do you think?
Well, I'm not in the cabinet and I can't make those decisions.
No, but I'm just asking for your opinion.
I'm a local politician. Look, I think that at the moment we have to get the situation out of control, in control. We have to restore calm. We have to get the people that have been taken hostage back. And then—
Listen, how do you do that?
We have to have an investigation on what happened here.
Right. And how do you get the hostages back safely? Because some of them have been taken to Gaza now. Is a ground offensive there the only option, or is that fraught with difficulty? And might you be better negotiating with Hamas, for example?
Well, I don't think Hamas is an honest organization to negotiate with, especially when everybody knows that they're the long arm of the Iranians. And if you ask me why this is happening, it's because Israel was making incredible advance towards peace with Saudi Arabia. There's a bigger picture here. And everybody else, all these innocent people on both sides, are being used as pawns.
So is a ground offensive into Gaza, in your view, the only realistic option to have any prospect of bringing some of those hostages back?
Well, I don't see how an air campaign can bring hostages, which is now probably 100, more than 100. Some people say hundreds of hostages back. It's very, very sad. The situation is sad. I'm close to this lady who's can't find her son already for 36 hours. He was at, ironically, a peace festival nearby at the rave. And at the moment, we're in a situation where there are so many mothers and fathers who can't find their children. It is absolutely tragic what's going on in Israel right now, inhumane what's going on.
Fleur Hassan Nahum, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, here with me now is the Palestinian ambassador to the UK, Hussam Zomlot, who's a senior member of Fatah, the party which controls the Palestinian Authority and is a political rival of Hamas. Ambassador, you heard there about the people missing, the hostages taken, the mothers, the elderly women, children taken hostage. Will you condemn this atrocity by Hamas?
Kathy, I have had this question as a first question in every interview I did, and I refuse to answer that question because it is the reason why we as an international community have failed to depict the situation as it is. The business of always being obsessed with blaming the victim, the occupied, the colonized, the besieged, when in fact I didn't see you asking her to condemn I didn't see you.
But I
did not hear
targeted-
your first
no.
question to condemn the killing of an entire family that your reporter.
No,
did
I
you ask
tackled
to
her on
condemn?
the people who are losing
So
their lives in
that's
Gaza,
why
and I'm
I refuse.
asking you
We
about the
cannot-
people who have
but
lost
Kathy,
their lives, the
Kathy,
Israelis who have lost their lives.
It's tragic. It's tragic.
And you condemn that
It's tragic,
atrocity.
and this has to stop. And this approach by the international Western media has to stop also. There is no way we can draw symmetry. The one side that is responsible fully on this is the occupying power. You cannot draw symmetry between militant groups and what you call here in the West the only democracy in the Middle East.
But this was an unprovoked attack. There were people at a peace festival, at a music festival. Could be hundreds dead there, young people. They had no quarrel in this. They had no skin in this game. Why did they have to die?
Kathy, my task here is to represent my people. This isn't about Hamas. This isn't about the last 48 hours of what the Israelis have seen. My people have been seeing the same over a period of 75 years. This is about a Palestinian people, more than 13 million of us, that have been denied our very basic rights for almost a century.
But I'm asking
And
you,
it
as a
all
human
start-
being, would you urge Hamas to release those hostages? As a human being?
As a human being, I urge that people's legitimate rights are respected.
And that includes the hostages, because after all, taking hostages is illegal in international law.
I wish safety to everybody. But do you know, Kathy, that Israel has taken 2 million people in Gaza hostages for the last 16 years?
And you heard me asking the Deputy Mayor that very question.
And I haven't heard any in the Western media or the international politicians, really, the outcry about that. So it's practically, ironically, it's hostages taking hostages.
Well,
And
I did tackle the lady in Jerusalem over that very point. But look, the attack by Hamas has now prompted this mighty vengeance, as Israel is calling it. The people of Gaza are the ones who are going to suffer. Your people are going to suffer. So how do you bring this bloodshed to an end? How do you play your part in that?
By giving my family in Gaza, because they are in Gaza, hope, horizon.
Where is the hope?
Prospect. Yeah, that's the question the Israelis need to ask themselves.
But I'm asking you that question.
No, that's
as well.
not for me. Our people have been struggling for 100 years. Our people, look, you know what is so tragic as well is this supremacist thinking in Israel that they could go and wreak havoc everywhere. They could attack Palestinians, kill them, round them without charge or trial. They could steal our land. They could desecrate our holy places. They could besiege people for years. And then they ask why this is happening.
But there's the same
epitome
attitude.
of racism.
But there's the same attitude by Hamas, right? 700 Israelis have lost their lives.
This is the epitome of racism. If we really want to nail it down, this is a moment that serves as an alarm, a wake-up call for all of us. There is no way around the Palestinian people and our issue. There is no way but to end this occupation. There is no other route but to enforce international law and international legitimacy.
Okay, but how does your party, Fatah, bring some pressure on Hamas? Do you talk to Hamas, for example?
My party has been the party that has led the Palestine national movement. My party started the armed resistance long before Hamas. And then we gave up that and we committed to 3 things: recognizing Israel, committing to negotiations and non-violence, and committing to international law and resolutions.
Are you talking to Hamas now? Are you urging restraint?
That was 30 years ago. We did that.
Okay, but not now? You have no leverage.
Israel was expected to do one thing: end its occupation, stop its colonization.
Right.
You know what happened. So you cannot...
Ambassador, I'm so sorry, we're out of time. Ambassador Zomlot, thank you very much for joining us. And on tomorrow's programme, we'll be speaking to Israel's ambassador to the UK. A 20-year-old British man is one of those who died in yesterday's attack. Nathaniel Young was serving in the Israeli army when he was killed on the Gaza border. And another British man, 26-year-old Jake Marlowe, has been reported missing. He was working at the rave that was attacked. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has condemned the attacks by Hamas against Israel.
I want to express my absolute solidarity for the people of Israel. Now is not a time for equivocation, and I'm unequivocal. Hamas and the people who support Hamas are fully responsible for this appalling act of terror, for the murder of civilians and for the kidnapping of innocent people, including children. I've just spoken with Prime Minister Netanyahu to assure him of the UK's steadfast support as Israel defends itself against these appalling attacks.